Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show. I am Joe, and I'm your host every Tuesday evening right here on WNRI 99.9 on the FM dial, 1380 on the AM dial. You can also catch us streaming at WNRI.com. A little about the show. We talk about real estate most of the time, and the show is geared for you, the consumer. If you have any questions at any point during the show, please feel free to give me a call on air at 401-769-0600. The show is also broadcast again on Saturdays at 1 p.m., so if you can't catch the whole show tonight, you can listen Saturday at 1 in the afternoon, and you can catch the show then as well. I want to thank our sponsors. Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster. Vern is licensed by the state of Rhode Island to be a public insurance adjuster, which means he works for you, the property owner, not the insurance company. Vern has a background in construction, so he knows what could be involved with a potential claim. And it doesn't even have to be something that happened today, yesterday, or last week. You can go back over a year in many instances. But the first thing you have to do is please give him a call at 484-300-8495. Again, that's Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster, 484-300-8495. And Compass Title and Escrow. Compass Title is the go-to closing and title company for buyers and sellers. They do a fantastic job. Anthony Betancourt, Camille, Christine, they do an awesome job taking care of our clients and preparing them for the closing and then explaining everything at the closing. This is not one of those closing factories where you go in and out and quickly initial here, initial there, and you don't have any time to ask questions. With Compass Title and Escrow, you can take your time and ask questions. They don't have any reason to rush you out because their goal is to make sure that you understand what you're signing and what you're initialing. Also, G. Metz Moving and Storage. George Metz, he's been a guest on the show. They've been a sponsor for a long time. It's the best move you'll ever make. Go with G. Metz Moving and Storage, the premier movers for southern New England. You have to just go to their website. You can get a price quote or schedule a move at gmetzmoving.com. That's G as in George, M as in Michael, E as in Edward, T as in Tom, Z as in Zebra, moving.com. GMETS Moving. And of course, when you are on the website and you're filling out the information, try to be accurate so that the pricing can be accurate. And if you're booking a move, you want to make sure that they send the right number of guys and, if necessary, more than one truck. Because everything is time, and it's going to take a certain amount of time to move all of your belongings from point A to point B. So if you have half the number of guys that you need, it's going to take twice as long for them to do the move. And a lot of times, timing is important when you're moving out of one house and moving into another house. Whether it's an apartment, condo, or a house, timing is important. So be accurate so they can be as accurate as possible when quoting the move and then also scheduling workers. That's gmetzmoving.com. Of course, I am a realtor. I work with buyers and sellers of real estate in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. I am working out of REMAX Preferred. We have an office in North Providence. We have REMAX Town and Country in Cumberland and REMAX Properties in Smithfield as well. I love working at REMAX. We've got a great group of people that work there, and it's been very enjoyable and rewarding because it's not just going in and helping people with real estate transactions. It's so much more than that. I've been a realtor since about 2006, believe it or not, and this is the 12th year I've been on the air with this radio show, so I'm very blessed to have been able to experience longevity in the industry and on the radio station. Thank you everyone for tuning in all of this time. So without further ado, let's talk about what's going on in the market. Well, good news in one sense today because mortgage rates are down below 7%, okay? They're about 0.05% lower than they were yesterday for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. So it's 6.97. The 30-year FHA 6.48, 30-year VA is 6.5. Now this is You may say, oh, Joe, that's high. My friend has 4.5%. Yep, that is higher than 4.5%, but it's lower than the historic average for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, which that average is 8%. Now, the rates that I quote, when I quote rates, I go to Mortgage News Daily every week. I source my rates from the same entity. And the rates that any individual may receive from a lender may vary. Maybe they're lower, maybe they're higher. The things that impact the rate that you have, that you will receive, first and foremost are, what are you buying? Is it a home to live in? Is it a single-family home? Is it a multifamily home? Is it a condominium? Is it an investment property? Is it a second home? Is it a vacation home? These things impact of the property because there are different mortgage products for each of them. Are you getting a USDA loan? Are you getting a VA loan, an FHA loan, a conventional loan? Is it a portfolio product if you're going to a bank like Bank 5 or Navigant Credit Union or Centerville Bank, you may be able to qualify for a, air quotes, portfolio loan, which they basically lend out their own money. Typically, folks, when you apply for a mortgage, the mortgage company, they qualify you. There are certain criteria that you need to comply with to qualify for an FHA mortgage or a Fannie Mae mortgage. If you reach all of those criteria, typically what the lender does is, after it closes, they'll sell that to another company. So if we're just going to make up numbers here, $100,000 mortgage, they may sell it to a hedge fund or an insurance company for $110,000. The reason the other company pays more for it is because they're going to receive the interest payments for the life of the loan or until you refinance. So when you're working with, and I encourage everyone, always work with a local lender, local institutions, the Navigants, the Bank 5s, Centerville Bank, Washington Trust. These are all local institutions or local mortgage lenders. Okay, if it's North Point Bank, Anchor Financial. These are all local entities, and the reason for that is because you will be dealing with someone who lives in this area, in this part of the country. They have a vested interest. They spend money, go to our restaurants, buy cars here, buy furniture here. They're not, 2,000 miles away spending the money they earn from your home purchase in another local economy. Okay. Plus, a lot of these folks, they sponsor sports teams. Their kids go to school here. These are all of the things that enrich our local culture, okay, and make things, very homey, because that's one of the best things about buying a home is you're vested in the local community. So I always encourage everyone to work with a local lender. So if you're talking with one of these lenders and you're applying for a mortgage, those are the things up front that could impact the rate that you will get. And of course, beyond that is you and how you qualify. And I always try to engage with people thinking about buying a home as early as possible. So if I'm talking with someone today and they're like, Joe, I don't want to buy a house for another year and a half. I'm just kicking the tires now. I'm just trying to get a feel for the market. And I say, you know what, that's great. But let's just start the education process, the process of you learning about mortgages, of you learning about credit, of you learning about values, the differences between homes in this neighborhood and that neighborhood, in this city and compared to that town. Do you really want to live close to the highway? Do you want to live further out, more rural areas? These are a lot of questions that we'll ask along the way, or I will prompt you to answer along the way, so that by the time you are ready to buy a home, you know what the baseline value is for a good home, and you've taken the steps necessary to improve your credit. So even if you have good credit, there are things you can do to make it better credit, so it's great credit. But if you're applying for a mortgage now to buy a house in 30, 60, 90 days, you don't have as much time to improve your credit score. Maybe there are some things you can do, but if you're trying to pay down $5,000 of debt on a car loan or a credit card, that may not be enough time. So I try to get everyone, plan way ahead. Give yourself a long runway before takeoff to actually buy a house. So if, 80% of the people looking at homes online aren't going to be buying a house in the next 60 days. I like getting some people from that 80% group and then determining maybe some of those people couldn't buy a home now even if they wanted to because they don't make enough money, because they don't have strong enough credit. Well, we can help take steps so that maybe we can make changes in their profile. Okay, maybe talk to your roommate, talk to family members. Maybe we can get some extra income here. Maybe there are other different types of loans. You have good credit, you don't make enough money. Maybe there's a loan where you're buying a multifamily property that you could qualify for using a debt service coverage ratio loan. I don't make those determinations. I put you in touch with great lenders who do. Okay? And they'll tell you what is best for you. And what a lot of the lenders that I work with, they're very, I like to use the word magnanimous in that if they don't have the right product for you, they'll say, hey, you know what, Joe, I don't have the perfect product for Susie, the home buyer, but this lender does. You may want to have her call this lender because I think they could help her out better than I could. And if you're just going to one of these big institutional banks, they're just going to say, oh, I'm sorry, Susie, you don't qualify for a mortgage. They're not going to say you don't qualify for one of the mortgage products that we have. You would qualify for a mortgage at another company. That's not what the big institutional lenders do. Okay? In my professional experience, just seeing what happens. I've had people tell me, oh, XYZ big bank said I can't get a mortgage. And I was like, really? It doesn't sound like things are that bad. Let me have you talk to one of my lenders and see if they can do something. And literally, things have turned around where someone thought they were all bummed out that they couldn't buy a home. But by connecting them with one of my great lender partners, they were able to qualify for a loan to buy a house. Okay? And the thing is, too, there are lots of different ways to structure a loan or loans. Many times people would utilize programs that Rhode Island Housing had, where it's a combination of a first mortgage, a second mortgage, and grants, and then one disappears after you've lived in the house for 5 years, and a lot of different scenarios that could work for people. But you need to be aware of those, and I've been in the business long enough, and I work with great lenders. I have great lender partners, so I can direct my clients to the best program for them, because it's not about me, it's about the client, the person, the couple, the individuals buying a home. Okay? If I'm working with sellers, those relationships with lenders are also very important, because if it's a unique home, I may know of a lender that has a perfect loan product, mortgage product for that type of a home. Okay, if it's something that needs a certain amount of work, if it, needs a lot of major work, if it, needs to be subdivided, whatever the situations are, there are many different loan programs available. Now, where it gets a little challenging, I guess you could say, is when you have someone that has this is what they're looking for, but that's not what they can qualify for. So then it's decision time. Excuse me. Does the buyer, all right, maybe you can't live in this neighborhood, but maybe if we could find you everything you want in this neighborhood, or if we look at your first neighborhood, but not everything you want in a house. Maybe it's a little bit smaller, not as much land, things like that. And that's how we try and work through potential challenges. Because my job is to help you find a house. And once we find the house, as long as you still want to buy that house, we're going to do everything to make sure that we can get you to the closing table. If at any point you say, you know what, Joe, I don't want to go forward with this, I want to back out, I will inform you if you can do that without cost or if it's going to cost you money. And It's very important when you receive documents sent to you by your realtor, whether it's me or any of my colleagues, read the documents over. If you don't understand them, ask questions. Because it's called a purchase and sales contract for a reason. You are signing a contract to purchase property. And there are certain timelines, time criteria, that the parties to the contract have to adhere to. Now, the difference between Rhode Island and Massachusetts is a time is of the essence state. So if there is a date and time that something has to be done, if you're not going to make that date and time, you need to have an extension executed by all parties before that date passes. Excuse me. In Rhode Island, it's not time is of the essence. So, okay, it's 12 o'clock on the 30th of May. We have to get this done, but it's 1 o'clock. We've been talking about it for a day and a half. We're going to get this signed. So there's a little bit of, I call it wiggle room, slush room there. Of course, I try not to have to rely on that. But in the event that something happened, somebody got into an accident, somebody went in the hospital, and you couldn't get it done, and you were trying to, the party on the other side of the transaction would have a tough time canceling the contract. Okay? If party A had notified party B they wanted to extend this, but then they got into an accident and weren't able to sign the documents, as long as party B was made aware of that, it would be in writing. It would be a challenge for that party B to say, nope, cancel it, that's it, we don't want to do anything, I want to turn around and sell this to someone else. Maybe they could, maybe they couldn't, but that's when we would engage the service of good attorneys. Okay, and I'm fortunate that I know a lot of great attorneys. Okay, if it's Joe Rahab in Lincoln, Rich Nicholson in Smithfield, really good attorneys who understand business and real estate exceptionally well. Okay, so getting back to the mortgage rates that went off on that little bit of a tangent. So last week the 30-year fixed rate mortgage for 3 days straight was over 7%. Okay, and that was the first time that happened since February. Generally, rates have come down now, so they are below that, as I said earlier. Now, one of the things people say, well, Joe, how come an FHA mortgage has a lower rate than a conventional mortgage? Why does a VA mortgage have a lower rate than a conventional mortgage? Those are entities, the VA and the FHA, which essentially guarantee the loan. Okay, and when you get an FHA mortgage and you're coming in with low down payment, you have to pay what's called PMI, private mortgage insurance. So in the event that you defaulted on the loan, that insurance would kick in to cover the shortfall, okay, the default. So if you borrowed $300,000 and then you went into default, the bank had to foreclose. Because you had that private mortgage insurance, the bank would be paid back the money they were owed. VA, that's with an FHA loan. With a VA loan, you don't have to pay that. It's a 100% financed loan. And there's no PMI. Now, the downside to a 100% financed loan is you need to have more income to qualify for it. So if you're taking out a $400,000 mortgage and you're putting 3.5% down or 5% down, your payment every month is going to be lower than if you were taking out the same loan amount on a VA loan where you're financing the full amount with no money down. The payment will be higher. Also with the VA loan, they can be a little bit more forgiving for some credit issues. So they can go a little bit lower on the FICO score that their borrowers need to qualify. The VA loan, that's a Veterans Administration loan. It's available to military veterans and active military. Okay, so it's a fantastic loan program because you're getting better rates, you don't pay PMI, and you don't have to put money down. I've sold houses where people buy $900,000 houses with no money down because you're getting a VA loan, which is, when you're talking to the seller, it's a tough sell because they're saying, wait a minute, is this individual real? They're coming in with only $1,000 to hold the house, which they would get back at closing from the VA loan. So I'm selling you my $900,000 house and we only have $1,000 in escrow, Joe? Yep, that's true. They have plenty of money. They're very qualified according to their lender, because that would be the first question I would ask. Now, the lender is working with the buyer. If I'm the listing agent, they cannot release that private information to me, other than saying, Joe, you don't really have anything to worry about. This person is not going to walk away from the loan or walk away from the purchase. So that's the difference between the different mortgage products. Now, additionally, we've been seeing a lot of other loan products come available. The frequency or the incidence of people using them is more common now, and there's something called a debt service coverage ratio loan. This is for people when they're buying a house. The lender looks at the ratio of the rents collected to the monthly payment. So let's say, hypothetically, you're buying a 3-family house and the rents collected are $3,300 and the mortgage payment with taxes and insurance is $3,000. That would be a debt service coverage ratio of 1.1, because it's the 3,000, and then an extra 10% to cover above and beyond the mortgage. If you have 1.2, then it would be, in my example, $3,600 of income, which may sound like a lot of money, but that's between 2 apartments. That's only $1,800 per unit. The average rent in the city of Providence for a 1-bedroom apartment is $1,800. Yes, that's true. So debt service coverage ratios can be a real opportunity for some buyers. Now, you still have to, there are still guidelines you need to qualify for regarding down payment and regarding FICO score. But this is an option that would allow some people to buy a home that they may not be able to buy. Okay? So again, if you have any questions and you want to call in, 401-769-0600. My phone number for work is 401-409-5030. Again, 401-409-5030. Just have to call or text that number. I'll answer any questions that you have as well. Something else I wanted to talk about tonight is there was an article in Rhode Island News Today, and it was about RIPEC, the Rhode Island Public Expenditure Council. They did a report on Rhode Island Housing Resources Commission, and they say it's an agency in need of reform. This is pretty interesting because, of course, I'm most familiar with, as a real estate professional, Rhode Island Housing, because they have grants and loan programs available for home buyers and homeowners. Okay, but the Housing Resources Commission, HRC, is different, and RIPEC found that the HRC has wide statutory authority over housing policy, and programming, and shares many of the same top-line capabilities with the Department of Housing for the state of Rhode Island. So there's a little bit of an overlap there. And I'm pointing this out because, Rhode Island, we are not exactly flush with cash as a state. So perhaps we should be looking to, implement some DOGE cost cutting. I'm not saying that either of these agencies need to be cut, but maybe we should be looking at opportunities where money could be saved. Okay. So RIPEC did a 50-state analysis and found that HRC's combination of membership size, responsibilities, funding authority, and persistent issues with conflicts of interest makes it unique among housing stakeholder agencies nationwide. Okay, I want to read that again. Membership size, responsibility, funding authority, and persistent issues with conflicts of interest. Let that sink in. Quote, the HRC has wide statutory powers and has been responsible for housing policy, rulemaking, and programming in Rhode Island since its inception in 1998. However, under current law, HRC shares many of these same responsibilities with the Department of Housing, and it is unclear which is the state's lead entity for housing. So we have two chefs in one kitchen, essentially. Governor McKee recently submitted a budget amendment that would, quote-unquote, reimagine the HRC as an advisory body. Okay, so that, I'm chairman of the Cumberland Conservation Commission, which is an advisory body. We are not paid. It's a volunteer commission. I will bet dollars to donuts that Governor McKee's quote-unquote reimagining of the HRC is for paid individuals. Okay. And folks, the reason I'm pointing this out is because there's only so much money in the pot. And if it's not spent or invested wisely, then they have to replenish the money in the pot. How do they do that? Well, they increase fees and taxes on the populace. I saw on Instagram earlier today, Representative Morales, he is, making a big point that, we have public libraries, we have public parks, we have public schools, and these all need funding. Everything needs funding. Nothing runs for free. What we have to start doing is when money is provided to these entities, whatever the entity is, the entity needs to be held accountable. Okay, so if it's a department that's supposed to be maintaining the roads, okay, this is the budget, you need to be maintaining the roads. If you're not doing a good job maintaining the roads, why? And let's look into that. Oh, we don't have enough money. Why? Are there too many people leaning on shovels? Do we need new trucks because there aren't enough trucks on the road? We need to start to have this conversation to determine what is necessary. Jumping back to the RIPEC report, some of the other findings are 13 of 28 seats, 46.4% of the HRC's membership is weighted towards representatives of non-profit advocacy groups and service providers. Okay, so almost half is for non-profit entities. Stick a pin in that. The HRC has historically struggled with membership and currently has only 18 of 28 seats filled, with 10 seats awaiting gubernatorial appointment. So wait a minute, it's 28 seats, we only have 18 that are currently occupied. So does that mean 13 of those 18 are occupied by nonprofits? Seems like a reasonable question. 3, meeting attendance has declined every year since 2019, with fewer than half of sitting members on average in attendance in 2024. That is unacceptable. If you are on a commission, you need to show up and provide your 2 cents. 4, members holding statutorily designated seats often have matters before the HRC, leading to frequent abstentions. So we have 18 of the 28 seats that are currently filled. if one person has to abstain from a vote, now there's only 17 people, 13 of whom may be nonprofits, who are voting on an issue which may impact private sector landlords, may impact private sector property developers, contractors, tenants. Okay. Next, since 2016, 3 community development corporations with representatives on the HRC received $17 million of $90 million available in bond funds administered by the HRC. So 17 million of 90 million. All right, that's almost 20% of all the funds that have been dispersed went to nonprofits. Okay, 3 community development corporations. Those are nonprofits. So changes need to be made. The policy recommendations from RIPEC are: 1, change the HRC's statutory authority; 2, remove all HRC funding authority, so that way they can't vote on monies that are going to be awarded to companies that they're personally involved with, in which they'd have to abstain, or in companies like the ones that they're representing on the nonprofit side. Reconstitute the HRC as an advisory body, which is what the governor is recommending, and reduce HRC membership and ensure members adhere to term limits. And I would say also require attendance. How many times do they meet? Do they meet monthly or quarterly? If they meet quarterly and you miss 2 meetings, you missed 50% of the meetings. Okay. Also from RIPEC, no other states have stakeholder housing bodies that are organized or operate like HRC. With declining membership and attendance, conflicts of interest, and lack of transparency, our research demonstrates that the HRC is not the appropriate agency to hold decision-making authority over housing policy, programming, or funding. Not when it was formed in 1998, and particularly not now, as Rhode Island faces especially steep housing challenges. Okay. And then it goes on to list the members of the HRC. Melina Lodge, whom I know, Michelle Brophy, she's Associate Director of Behavioral Health Care, Lisa Breyer, Town of Jamestown Planning, Maria Samini, Rhode Island Office of Healthy Aging, Brenda Clement, Representative of Fair Housing, Jean Michael Derry, Rhode Island Bankers Association, Kim Simmons, Executive Director of Rhode Island Coalition for the Homeless, Jordan McKinning, Office of the Attorney General, Deborah I. Mundy, President of Rhode Island Mortgage Bankers Association, Paula McFarland, Executive Director of the Warwick Housing Authority, Kim Marola Brito, Director of the Rhode Island Department of Human Services. Lost my place. Matthew Santa Croce, Deputy Director of Department of Business Regulation. Melissa Sanzaro, Rhode Island Association of Executive Directors for Housing. Mike Samoli, Rhode Island Department of Health. Phil Tedesco, my friend from the Rhode Island, he's the CEO of the Rhode Island Association of Realtors. Carol Ventura, Executive Director of Rhode Island Housing and Mortgage Finance. Eric Wallen, Esquire, Executive Director of Operations Stand Down. And Rebecca Weber, Deputy Director of Performance and Projects, Department of Administration. So a lot of these positions, okay, a lot of these members are from the governmental side or the nonprofit side. You know, we have somebody from the Rhode Island Bankers Association, Rhode Island Mortgage Bankers. We have Phil from RIAR. Perhaps we should have some developers or some contractors on here as well, just to give a different perspective. Okay, and then do we need this many people on here? That's something that should be discussed as well. But I wanted to talk about this because, this, as I said, this is in Rhode It caught my attention because, we do have a lot of entities in Rhode Island. We're the smallest state in the Union. We have 39 municipalities. Okay, that means we have an abundance of departments of public works, education, fire departments, police departments. Is there any way we can kind of leverage, all of the needs so that everybody could spend less money? Maybe regionalize purchases. We have counties in this state. We don't utilize county government. Maybe there could be some way of utilizing it. Maybe organize things so that the urban municipalities, the cities, purchase stuff together. I don't know. Maybe they have similar needs, their police departments, their fire departments. I don't know. But I think this is something that perhaps we should start to have a conversation about for the benefit of the state of Rhode Island as an entity and for the benefit of the citizens of Rhode Island. Because if you had municipalities that banded together and they were buying 3 fire trucks instead of 1, maybe they could get a discount. If you have school departments that band together so they can buy computers. When you have 3 school departments together, 4 school departments, maybe you're going to get a better price. It's called economies of scale. So, and I know this is a simple solution to most likely a complicated problem, but I think it's worth having the conversation with parties who have a vested interest in this. And of course, I think citizens, we have a vested interest, and I've, for 12 years been talking about people engaging with their local politicians at the municipal level and at the state level and at the federal level. Okay? We need to pay attention, because if you don't pay attention, you can't complain when things happen that you don't like, that you don't agree with. Just like if you don't vote, you can't complain about your politicians. Okay? If you don't vote, keep your mouth, closed. Can't complain about the governor, the president, the senators, the representatives, the mayor, if you're not voting, because you have one voice and you didn't utilize it. Complaining over the dinner table, over the coffee shop, calling up to talk radio and just complaining. If you don't vote, what's the purpose? What I try to do is get people to pay attention, to engage, and think. Jeepers, I've been renting this apartment for 15 years. My rent's up to $1,800 a month. I don't have anything to show for it. Why? What programs out there are available to make it easier for people like me to buy a house? Think forward. Become engaged. And a lot of times, the challenges of tenants go unrecognized. And I'm saying the challenges of tenants, like for the transition from becoming from changing from a tenant to a homeowner. Okay, just like the challenges of an individual landlord, many times are unrecognized, unacknowledged, because no one talks, no one goes to complain to the appropriate authority. Pay attention to what's going on at the State House. There are lots of hearings on a regular basis. The Rhode Island Association of Realtors, we have people who, I did it a couple of months ago, and my colleagues who are involved in leadership now, they do it on a regular basis where they're there at the State House to testify until 9 o'clock at night, 9:30 at night. They could be home with their family, but they're testifying on issues that aren't putting more money in their pocket, on issues that are going to make it easier for people to buy, sell, or own a home. Okay, there are challenges that the legislature in this state has put in place that are really hamstringing property owners and buyers of property, because if it costs more money because someone has to comply with these regulations on a property that they own, guess what? When they go to sell that property, they need to be compensated for what they spent on that property. So now the cost for the home is going up. Or if it's something that pops up during an inspection, let's say you have someone who's owned a property for a long time, there's a home inspection, they determine that, XY is not up to code. So if the seller doesn't have the ability to pay for it, now it's possible the buyer has to pay extra for it. And you might say, well, take it out of the seller's proceeds. Well, maybe, but if there's more than one buyer who's looking at that house, guess what? The one who offers to pay some or all of that extra fee is going to be the recipient of a signed purchase and sales contract. Because the listing agent is looking out for his or her client. So they're trying to find the best buyer for the property. Okay, folks, you're listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI 99.9 FM, 1380 on the AM dial. You can also catch us streaming on WNRI.com. The show every Tuesday from 6 to 7 o'clock p.m. and we rebroadcast it every Saturday at 1 p.m. So you can listen to it then if you don't catch the whole show tonight live. Shout out to some of our sponsors. Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster, licensed by the state of Rhode Island to be a public insurance adjuster and work for you, the property owner, not the insurance company. If you think you have a claim on your homeowner's policy, give Vern a call, 484-300-8495. Doesn't cost anything. He'll ask you some questions. You can explain the scenario, and he'll let you know if you potentially have a claim, and it's worth having him come out to look at your property. Even if it happened a year ago, Vern can probably hook you up. Even if you already received some money, but you think you should have tried to get more, Vern may be able to help you. But to find out if it's a yes or a no to get more money, you have to call him, 484-300-8495. Again, that's Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster, 484-300-8495. And of course, G-Metz Moving and Storage, the best move you'll ever make, G-Metz Moving. Check them out at gmetzmoving.com. And if you're just moving furniture from one side of the house to the other, you need to get the furniture out so you can have new carpets installed, they can help you out. If you're moving your entire household to another city or state, they can help you out. And if your kids are moving out of the house and getting their apartment for the first time, they can help you out. And it's worth checking them out, because if they damage something, they have insurance. If you damage something or get hurt, guess what? It comes out of your hide. So it's worth hiring professionals. G-Metz Moving. Check them out at gmetzmoving.com. That's G as in George, M as in Michael, E as in Edward, T as in Tom, Z as in Zebra, moving.com. And they will get back to you within 24 hours to schedule your move or with the price on the move. I just ask that you provide as much information as possible so they can give you an accurate quote. Okay, so, excuse me, so we talked about that RIPEC report and the HRC. We talked about mortgage interest rates. And I also wanted to talk about the economy, okay? The economy is, I had the news on this morning. I think it was Maria Bartiromo, and she had someone on from the, I think his name's Hassett, and they're saying that in the second 6 months of the year, this economy is going to be growing at over 3%. over 3%. Now, some data came out this morning, and it had shown that things went down 6.3%, but they were expected to go down 7.8%. Okay, this is durable goods orders. And that is seen as positive because they knew it was going to go down because of, well, the tumult with the tariffs. And people had stopped ordering. Like the month before, things went up because people ordered in anticipation of the tariffs, so they ordered ahead so they could buy stuff at a cheaper rate before the tariffs came into effect, so that they had all of the inventory. They didn't need to buy more in the month of April, so those numbers were down. But they were only down 6.3%, not the 7.8% that everybody was expecting. Okay, so I anticipate that things are going to continue to ameliorate, to improve, as we go forward, as we start to see more countries getting on board with tariffs. Hopefully the situation between Russia and Ukraine will work itself out with Zelensky and Putin. I think once that's off the international stage and they have a peace treaty signed or something, and everybody can just focus on making money, mining what they mine, growing what they grow, sell what they sell, that'll make everyone better off. And the same thing in the Middle East, if they can work something out with the countries there so that, again, get everybody behind making money. If everybody makes money, everybody's happy. And then you can take care of the people in your country, get them educated, improve the quality of life without killing. Without killing. We need to try and stay away from, these skirmishes where we have to invest billions and billions or trillions of dollars and literally the lives and limbs of American service members. Okay, if we can do things so that they do not have to risk their lives, that's good. Bloodshed is not good. Whether it's American, Ukrainian, Russian, Middle Eastern, it's not good. We need to try and focus on peace and not war. So hopefully, because if we can focus on peace, then people can make money from things that are productive, not destructive. When you have war, people make a lot of money when you go to war. It's a lot of the lobbyists, a lot of the military contractors, because they're making bombs that they can sell to blow up buildings, and then those buildings have to be rebuilt. Okay, so when the buildings have to be rebuilt, the people there probably don't have to have the money, so they're going to have to borrow money from wealthy families or wealthy global entities, and it's not positive. If everybody could just agree, okay, we're going to disagree on this, but we want to have a good quality of life, so we want to make money, and we're going to set up this development so people can travel here as tourists and be assured safety, not have to worry that they're going to get blown up or shot. Same thing here. Okay, we really have to make sure we buckle down and do what's necessary to take care of, people should not have to worry that they're going to be assassinated at their place of work because of their ethnic background, whatever it is. Okay, we need to assure the safety of our citizens. Now, I'm not advocating giving up any of our rights. I think we need to figure out a way around this to discourage that type of behavior or make it different for those individuals to come into this country. Okay, the people who want to do us harm. They're doing harm to us, those of us that are Jewish, Christian, Muslim, whatever. Okay, the United States needs to be safe and free from that type of violence. Okay, so hopefully that's not anything that is too controversial. I think when we're not at war, when everybody can focus on making money and being happy and being healthy, it's better all the way around. Okay, folks, you're listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI 99.9 FM. 1380 on the AM dial. If you want to reach me, you can call me at 401-409-5030. That's my business line. You can call or text me there. I have some buyers who are looking for homes. I've got people looking for 3, 4, and 6 unit properties almost anywhere. And I have one buyer who's looking for a commercial property in the Warwick, Cranston, West Warwick area. And I also have someone who is looking for a single-family home in the North Providence area. So if you know anyone who's thinking about selling their home, please reach out, 401-409-5030. Again, it's Joe Luca, Luca, Realtor, and I'm at RE/MAX Preferred in North Providence. I'm licensed. I work in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. I have a buyer that I'm working with who's looking in the Wilbraham area for a 3+ bedroom, 2+ bathroom house with a good piece of land and potentially privacy. So if you have anyone looking there. And I have some folks looking in the North Smithfield area as well. So, I have about 42 buyers at different stages in the buying process. Some aren't going to be ready for a year to a year and a half, and others are looking actively now. So if you know anyone that is thinking about selling their home or wondering if it makes sense for them to sell their home, please give me a call or shoot me a text, 401-409-5030. Again, that's Joe Luca, RE/MAX Preferred. If you forget, you can Google me, okay, Joe Luca Realtor, and you'll be able to find me on social media as well. LinkedIn, Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram. Okay, those are the ones that I'm on most of the time. So don't hesitate to give me a call. No obligation. I'll answer any questions you have. If you drive by a house and you're like, jeepers, I wonder how much that house would sell for. How much did that house sell for? How much is that house that just came on the market? Give me a call. Okay, no obligation. Also, I mentioned this last week. If you're thinking about selling your house yourself, also give me a call. I'll send you some information, just general safety information, so that you can, be safe when you list your home for sale. Other than that, stay tuned next week. What's next week's date? We had a guest. She moved out to the 10th. Elinor Buñol. She is a financial advisor. She's going to be on June 10th. That'll be a really good show talking about just, financial advisory, how to set yourself up as a homeowner or as a renter preparing to become a homeowner. She's super smart, super professional, and I look forward to that show. So please stay tuned. We'll be here same bat time, same bat channel next Tuesday right here on WNRI, and we'll be here the following week with my friend and financial advisor Elinor Buñol. Other than that, folks, take care and have a great week. Next up is Rick Mernier with the Old Time Preaching Chapel. Stay tuned for awesome scripture reading and interpretation. Bye-bye, everybody. Hey, guys, take care. Bye-bye.